You're watching The World with me, Charles Aniagolu. Now, it's a full-blown meltdown that could cost the U.S. Defense Secretary his job. That's the dramatic claim from the outgoing Pentagon spokesman who resigned his post amid drama and scandal at America's largest government agency. Pressure is mounting on Pete Hegseth after reports emerged that sensitive operations were discussed in a group chat that included his wife and brother. The controversy comes just a month after a journalist was added to a Signal group chat in which U.S. cabinet officials, including Mr. Hegseth, discussed plans to attack Houthi rebels in Yemen. Senior Democrats have called for the defense secretary to be removed from the position. At the annual Easter egg roll event at the White House, Mr. Hegseth lashed out at journalists asking him about the latest reports.
How's the Easter egg roll, sir?
Hey, we're happy to be here at the Easter egg roll, I'll tell you that. To be with the family, beautiful day. And President Trump is changing the country. And he's creating opportunities for families all across America to better their lives. And that's what Make America Great Again is all about.
What do you want to say, sir, about the Signal chat controversy?
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. And on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because, you know, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters.
So
This group, no, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with axes to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much.
Have you spoken to the president?
Have spoken to the president, and we are going to continue fighting on the same page all the way.
And that's the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Well, for more on this, let's cross over to the United States and speak with one of the Republican Party's top strategists, Errol Morkoc. Good to see you, Errol. So, according to the New York Times, as well as sharing plans to bomb Houthis in Yemen with a reporter from the Atlantic magazine on that Signal messaging app, Pete Hegseth had shared similar details with his wife and his brother on another group chat using that same commercial messaging app. So how much trouble is Mr. Hegseth in?
Well, from just a concerned citizen perspective to start off, I think, you know, he's in a little bit of hot water in the sense that while it wasn't his decision or the decision of the current administration to allow communications on Signal, it should not be happening. Signal is something that has backdoors into it. Signal is something that has the ability to delete messages, which could infringe on the Freedom of Information Act. So those are things that Hegseth should be criticized for, and rightly so. He shouldn't have been discussing these things in those. Well, in the first thing with the journalist, he shouldn't have been discussing anything with the journalist in the group. But the second one, obviously, with family, he shouldn't have been doing it. But I think in terms of the hot water or that he's under pressure, that's not really what's happening. According to my friends in the White House, there's no pressure on him whatsoever. You look at the military, Navy, Air Force recruiting records; they just broke records by 150% on recruiting in the U.S. Army, and this is after 4 years of huge decline. You saw that what he did despite having not not maybe texted the correct people about it, he did destroy a lot of Houthi encampments and installations for the Strait of Hormuz. That was something that was a gift to the world. The U.S. isn't even the top 5 user of that canal. So those are things that the White House is looking at. They're saying, okay, our Secretary of Defense has gotten engagement back up. He's gotten men joining the army again, and we've got more free trade through the world. So while this is not a good thing, and I'm not here to spin Pete Hegseth's behavior as a positive, it's not a career-ending injury and something that the president has forgiven him for.
So basically, senior Democrats who've been calling for the defense secretary to be removed from his position, that's not likely to happen.
It's unlikely. These are the same people who also voted against his confirmation. These are people who said that he's a white supremacist because he has a Christian tattoo. It's not a white supremacy tattoo. These are the same people who've been against them all along. And ultimately, they're going up against the first Secretary of Defense who've actually increased recruiting. People want to come and fight in Pete Hegseth's army. And that's something that's really good for the American people as a whole, because the U.S. Army is the #1 lifter of first-generation people into college and university. It's the biggest jobs program we have in the country. And so disengagement from that was a disengagement with civic responsibility. You're seeing Pete Hegseth as a strong leader bring young men into the fold. And so ultimately that trumps this, what I fully admit was a poor way to start off the communications department of the Secretary of Defense, and something they need to look at seriously, because that is not a safe way to communicate.
Well, absolutely. And it begs the question, do we understand why? Because, I mean, at least in the first one, you got the idea that it was a group of people who needed to discuss the issue, who were perhaps doing it in an inappropriate way. What was the purpose of the chat this time? Was he just blagging to his wife and his friends about all the cool stuff he gets to do?
You know, when you look at the content of the messages, you notice a few things, and these are things that are in his benefit. There are no strike coordinates. They're not the type of specifications that would actually have been, highly classified details. But they are things that are sensitive and or should not have been shared. So in the way you put that, I would say, based on what I read, it kind of looked like that. It kind of looked like him telling somebody who he shouldn't have been telling, hey, there's something going on over here. And that is not how he needs to be conducting himself. He's been reprimanded internally, but not to the extent that it's being pushed in the media. I mean, that's not how you're supposed to do things. He's new to the job. You're allowed to make a small error. In this case, they got lucky. They got lucky that nobody leaked any of this, that the enemy was not a substantial enemy. But, luck will only get you so far. I think your analysis is actually pretty right, Charles. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good, but it's not the end of the world, and it's not the entire focus of the U.S. Defense Department.
Nevertheless, Errol, hours after that story was published, came scathing op-ed from the former Defense Department spokesman John Elliott, who said that the last month had seen what he called a full-blown meltdown at the Pentagon, during which the department had been mired in chaos and suffered what he called a near collapse within the top ranks of the department. And he added that the dysfunction had now become a major distraction for President Trump. I mean, what's being made of all that?
Well, a couple things. On the first hand, it is fair to mention that this is a disgruntled, fired former staffer, somebody who has a bone to pick, and that happens oftentimes. But it's really important you brought this up, because what has come out is that Pete Hegseth and other people in Trump's circle very much appears to have stopped a bombing attempt on Iran. There was going to be war plans led by Israel, reports out internally and publicly showing that Pete Hegseth was very firm in trying to find a diplomatic solution first. And there was a lot of people in Washington who are very pro-war, very Iran war hawk type people. And so if this is true, if the Secretary of Defense and Tulsi Gabbard and all of them were able to convince President Trump to push for peace one more time, then that certainly is inviting a lot of attacks on him, and that's something that we can see here. I'm not saying that that's the only reason why he's being criticized, but that is certainly something that comes into play, because A lot of people have had a vested interest in a war with Iran for many times, and having a Secretary of Defense who pulled the plug on that kind of a mission obviously would invite more criticism, especially from the neocons that still exist on the Republican side of the ticket. So I think there was chaos. There was chaos in deciding what to do in regard to the enrichment of uranium, and President Trump ultimately listened to his advisors and decided to pursue a path of detente and peace, and that might be what has been attracting some of the negative headlines.
Errol, I want to thank you very much indeed. I know you were busy in a meeting and you took the time to talk to us, and we appreciate that very much. Errol Morkoc is a chief Republican strategist, and he was talking to me on the line there from California.